Hello, guys, and welcome to week two of this new series Nate started last week called You Are Not Alone. And last week, Nate kind of talked about the story of Joseph and how Joseph had been abandoned, betrayed, and even sold by his brothers into slavery, and how he was alone and imprisoned, and even though he was, technically and physically alone, apart from the other like inmates and stuff, but by his family, he was alone. He was never truly alone, right? Because God was always with him, and he made that abundantly clear. I think with the dreams and just speaking to Joseph and all that. This week, I'm actually going to be talking about a different type of, I guess, loneliness, and specifically when it feels like God has abandoned you, when it feels like God has left you, and you feel alone or apart from Him. So, about this time last year, I feel like I've been the most alone I've ever felt in a while. Maybe ever, I'm not sure, but um, there's a lot of things that stacked up around this time, um, and that it just built. I had the death of a few friendships. There was a few people that I had been friends with from work and from church that it just seemed like no matter how hard I tried, something had happened, something had left. This has been about a year, right, just less than a year after, no, maybe 6 months after a mission trip we had gone on, and a lot of the young adults that were in our church's young adult group had just left, and some of the coworkers of the last few months that I'd been really good friends with had left. I started Something happened with one of my roommates. He got a new job and basically just decided that with his new job it paid a little better and he wanted to move out. And so with that, he just decided to cut people out. And I don't know if it was a coping mechanism to make it a little easier to leave, but that was another friendship of mine. Like, we were pretty good friends. We lived together, and he just I guess wanted to be done, along with some of these other people. And I tried to reach out every now and then, but it just nothing was happening. And then there was the fact that January of last year, my old youth pastor, the one who I went through just about all of high school with, and just did an internship with, and I had been doing youth ministry with as an adult after graduation for about 3 years, had just stepped down. And then, as the things stack up even more, I a couple months into the summer had been pulled into the office by the operator at my last Chick-fil-A and basically told, hey, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to move forward with you into a management position. And so I'm going to give you, the rest of the month. It was about 2 or 3 weeks at that point to find a job somewhere else, because it just doesn't think it's going to be fulfilling for you. So, although I wasn't fired in a traditional sense, my biggest takeaway from it is that I was basically fired. And then, due to some other circumstances, other than just Josh leaving the church, I just began to feel alienated at the church I was at. And just in the youth group, eventually a new youth pastor came in. I had the unfortunate timing of breaking up with one of the other youth leaders that we dated for a short period of time. And between that, a new youth pastor coming in, and everything that was going on in the youth at that time, I just felt very alienated. I felt like It's just really, I guess, unfortunate timing with it all. But I felt really alone during this period of time. Like I didn't know what to do. I couldn't like, and the worst part was the youth group was the one thing I always had throughout high school. Like I felt like it didn't fit in a lot of places in school, um, whether it was extracurriculars or just in general. Was more. I had some friends, like some close friends that I hung out with, but other than for the most part, I wasn't, very popular or this or that. But there wasn't a lot of places I'd say I tried doing drama and this and that, and I think I mentioned that before, where I tried it for a few other clubs, but none of them really clicked. None of them really set in for me, um, and so it was just really hard. But the one thing I always had once I started going to this new church and streams as a freshman in high school, like that was the first place I felt accepted, and I felt like I flourished and belonged, And once that was like tainted, or it felt tainted at least, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. That was the one thing that was like I had this and I don't have that anymore. Um, and with that, it kind of felt like like God, where are you? And it's like what's going on? But I was too busy listening to my emotions, feeling sad and a little depressed about everything that had happened over the last few months, or even the year before that. And I was listening, I think, to the wrong people, to the wrong friends. My roommate, I talked to him a lot, and he means well. Like he wasn't like trying to steer me wrong, but he more on the mindset of like, yeah, just forget it. Like it doesn't matter. Like just move on. And I just don't think that was the wisest, like most the thing I needed to hear right then. And so I just started asking questions to God. It's like, why is this happening? Why am I so alone? Where are you? But I couldn't hear an answer. Uh, so finally, I just decided I didn't want to try anymore. I wanted to stop going to youth. So I did. I isolated myself because all I heard were the lies from the enemy. All I heard was your friends don't want to hang out with you. Your old coworkers that you were really close with, they don't care anymore. The youth didn't need me. Josh left me, and God had left me. I was lost, and I was alone, and that's what the enemy stole from me. Through this time where all these challenges, he stole my confidence in the Lord. I remember sitting in my car one night at this new job after it closed, and I was literally crying, tears in my eyes, crying out to God, asking for things to change. And maybe that's something you can relate to. Maybe you've been there before. Maybe you've felt abandoned by God. Maybe you've been alone or felt alone. Maybe there's been a time where you couldn't hear his voice anymore, where there was this other time where he was so tangible and you felt his presence, and then there's been another where it just felt like he wasn't there anymore. Maybe there's been a time where the only cry of your heart has been, God, please just change this, what's happening right now. Well, that's a part of my story. Now let's take a look at the heart of a man named Job. So, some context here, I guess. Job was said to be like a really good man. God spoke highly of him, and he had a lot of wealth. He had a good big family, and that's kind of where this all starts. So I'm going to read through a little bit of the first chapter in the book of Job. I'm going to paraphrase some parts and shorten it, but for the most part, that's what we're going to be looking at. And I'm going to read from at the beginning. It says first in Job 1, in the land of Uz, there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and he owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 donkeys. He had a large number of servants. He was the greatest man among the people of the East. Just imagine that. Like, I don't even know what a yoke of oxen is, but he had 500 of them. Several 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 donkeys, several servants, and then not only that, he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. So he had 10 kids. With all of this that God had given him. It says he was the greatest man among the people of the East. I don't know what the East is talking about. I don't think it's the East Valley of Salt Lake. So, but whatever the East is, he was the greatest man among those people. But anyway, moving forward, in Job 1:4, it says, his sons used to hold feasts in their homes on their birthdays, and they would invite the 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. When a period of feasting has run its course, Job would make arrangements for them to be purified. Early in the morning, he would sacrifice a burnt offering for each of them, thinking, perhaps my children have sinned and pushed God in their hearts. This was Job's regular custom. So he would even, go the extra step with his kids. He would sacrifice for them, and just in case something had happened, and that was just a regular thing that he did. So this is where I'm going to start paraphrasing after this. It goes on in Job, and it's just kind of like counsel is what it sounds like, where the angels bring Satan to God, or Satan makes his way there, and God asks him, he's like, where have you been? He says, more or less, I've been wandering the earth. And he hears Job, God talk about Job, and says, I think he just worships you because you look at what all you've given him. Look how good he has. Like, he has no reason not to worship you. You should let me torment him and influence his life. And then if you let me do that, he would no longer worship you. He would dismiss you and leave you. And so God kind of lets this little experiment play out, and Satan gets permission to do whatever he wants with Job, as long as he doesn't kill him. So it says from there that Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. And Job 13, it says, one day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby, and the Sabans, another group of, I don't know, heathens or non-Jewish people, Christians. I'm not sure exactly what the Sabans were, but I'm sure you could look it up. Attacked and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword and killed them. And I am the only one who's escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the fire from God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep and the servants. I am the only one who's escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword and killed them, and I am the only one who's escaped to tell you. And while he yet was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead, and I am the only one who escaped to tell you. It says in Job 20, at this Job got up, he tore his robe, shaved his head, and fell to the ground in worship. He said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord of God came, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. So Job, kind of in the blink of an eye, has lost everything. And his immediate response is to just start praising God. So after, in this like one instant that Job loses everything, his immediate response is to praise God. I don't know if I could do that, like right after I lost everything, but Job does. And so it kind of goes on, and a big chunk of the story of Job is just him kind of having this conversation with his friends, or I like to say friends because they weren't very good friends, if you ask me. They spend the whole time seeing what happened to Job and speculating, because at this period of time, there's this kind of general understanding that God is just, and He's a just God who rules righteously and is fair. Um, and this is kind of the first instant where we see something that like happens that doesn't seem fair. Um, and so his friends spend the whole time saying like, "You must have sinned pretty bad for this to happen." Like, imagine that. Imagine you just lose everything. Like maybe you just had your dream job. Like you have this dream job. Whatever you want to do, you have it, and you're doing it, and it's great. And you love your coworkers, and you make all these friends there, and like everything's going good. And then one day, just randomly, one day, your boss pulls you into his office and says you're fired for no reason. Doesn't give any explanation, and as far as you're aware, you have done nothing. And then all your so-called friends and coworkers spend the next, while you're packing your stuff up and all that, just spend the whole time saying, "So what'd you do? You must have done something pretty bad, right? You just got fired. What happened? But you were innocent. You didn't do anything." And that's kind of what his friends are doing this whole time. Like, you must have done something pretty wrong for all this stuff to happen to you. God is punishing you. He's just. Why is this happening? And it kind of goes back and forth on this, on and on and on and on, with Job's friends saying and speculating, okay, like maybe you did this or maybe you did that, and Job saying no, and pleading with God and saying, prove my innocence, deliver me from this season, from this situation, and it finally builds up to this point where Job cries out, and God finally shows up. He shows up in the storm. I think it's pretty poetic with everything, because I feel like any of the times where I feel like I couldn't hear God or was away from His presence, that it just kind of feels like a storm is going on in my life. So God shows up in the storm, and he shows Job the world and the universe and all its complex nature. And Job realizes through this that although it may not make sense, it may not be just or fair, but God is still good, and it doesn't make sense to him then, or maybe ever, but God is still there the whole time and was with him the whole time. And it's kind of a point where I had to come to myself. I looked at it a little different. My friends, back in Phoenix, weren't really as big of jerks whenever I reached out and said, hey, but it took that first step of me reaching out and saying, hey, there was a worship night that happened, and I went to a friend, and one of my old friends, he was older than me, and I said, hey, like, I feel alone. I feel like all my friends don't care. I feel like youth doesn't care. I feel like God doesn't care. And he took a moment during this worship night, and he prayed with me and spoke some wisdom, and we had this really good moment. And I still don't know why all those things happened, but I have some speculation, like, where am I right now? Would I be willing to have made so many changes in my life if I had been as close as I was with everybody? If I hadn't had all these bad things happen, would I still be willing to do what I feel like God wants me to do right now, or would it have held me back? But I don't know. There's no guarantee that that's why, or this is why, or whatever. All I know is that God is good, and I have to trust Him through this. So maybe you felt something similar before. Maybe you feel abandoned right now. My encouragement to you would be to just take that step. Reach out to God, and quiet yourself. Because that was one of the hard things I did. I feel like how loud I was drowned out all the noise. I couldn't even hear God because I just kept crying out to Him and didn't give Him an opportunity to answer. Not only reach out to God, but reach out to somebody else. It could be me, or Nate, or another leader, or your parents, or a friend, anybody. that you feel like has a relationship with Christ, take that first step and just reach out to them. But there's also a pretty good chance that maybe you don't feel alone right now. Maybe you don't feel like God has abandoned you. But there may have been another time that happened, and I feel like if there was another time that you didn't get through it alone, that somebody helped you before, whoever that may have been, I would encourage you to write down their names. So if it ever comes up again, you'd be ready to reach out and already know who to talk to. So now I'm going to pray, and then I hope to see you all in our Zoom call. So dear Lord, I just thank you that your ways are higher and that we don't have to understand them, but we can trust and know that you are good through it all, and that even if we don't always see you through everything, even if I don't always see you in whatever it is that the enemy's throwing at us, even if we let the enemy distract us, you are still there, you are still with us, and always will be. And there's nothing we can do or go through that will change that. And we just thank you for that, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.